Good evening, Calvary kids, and welcome to Kids on Missions Online. I'm so excited you could join me here tonight. We're going to have a great time tonight as we continue to talk about different countries around the world and the missionaries that serve in all of these different countries. Now remember, a missionary is someone who goes somewhere and tells somebody about Jesus. That's what we've been talking about the last couple months. The last few weeks, we've been talking about the countries around the Amazon region and the missionaries that are serving there. But this month, we are going to introduce a brand new region of the world. We're going to be talking about many of the different countries that are in these regions. And we're going to be talking about Southeast Asia. So you're going to see it up here on the map. Southeast Asia is comprised of all these different little countries, a lot of them little different islands, and they are very, very unique. It's a very unique part of the world where you see a ton of different cultures, a ton of different languages, a ton of different needs. But one of the things that just about all these countries have in common is a specific food that is grown in all these countries and just is a big part of the culture in all these countries. Now, there's a hint on the stage, but who could tell me, what do you think that specific food is that's grown in all these countries in Southeast Asia? That's right. If you were able to see here on the table, I've got a jar of rice tonight because rice is one of the most important things in all these Southeast Asian cultures. It's the most popular food there. It's grown in all these different countries, and it is a big factor in their culture and in their world. So we're going to talk a little bit tonight about rice. And I'm going to do my very best not to make a mess on the stage. So tune in. We don't know what's going to happen. But we're going to talk about rice tonight and why it's such an important thing for all these different countries and how it ties into missionaries and telling people about Jesus. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of education. I know you guys are doing all the homeschooling stuff and you're probably not interested in this, but I found this to be kind of cool. How many of you actually know how rice is grown? Like, how do you get rice? Like, not just from the store in the baggie or whatever, but how do you actually get rice? It's actually a complicated process, a little bit more complicated than I thought. I'm not a gardener. I don't have a green thumb or anything. I don't grow anything. So I had to look this up, but I want to tell you guys a little bit how rice is grown in Southeast Asia and how they're able to make so much rice there. So in Southeast Asia, it's a very different type of job. It's a very unique way of growing something. So in order to grow rice, basically they take the rice seeds and they plant it in flooded plains called paddies, all right? So they have to get it down in there, and it's basically in a flooded area, so it's covered with water. The rice root, once it takes root, it absorbs nutrients in the water, and it takes about 3 to 6 months to grow. So once you plant the seed, it's going to take about 3 to 6 months before it actually grows to where you can use it. All right? Then at harvest time, the paddies must be completely drained and dried out before the rice is picked. So all those flooded areas, those flooded land, they have to drain that out. All right, when it's time to harvest the rice, they have to drain all that out. Then they have to harvest the rice, and before the rice is ready to be eaten, the grain must be separated. Basically, you have to take it apart and basically remove the grain of rice, one of these little bitty grains of rice, from the seed hole that's around the piece of rice. All right? And then, once all that's complete, then you have rice. Now, I don't know about you guys, that seems like a very complicated process to me. That seems like a lot of stuff. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to be able to get a whole lot of rice. But it's a part of their culture. It's a very important part of their identity and really about how they provide rice for all around the world. It's a very important thing for them. Now, here's another thing that I wanted to show you guys with this rice. Let's say, I didn't actually count, But let's say there's about 1 million pieces of rice in here. All right? There's 1 million pieces of rice, and I'm going to take out I'm going to get a good handful here. I'm going to take about 80 pieces of rice. All right? All right, so I'm not actually counting, but this is about close to 80 pieces of rice. All right? There's still a lot more in here, right? Because there's 1 million pieces of rice. I took out the 80 pieces of rice. The 80 pieces of rice basically represent about the amount of people that believe in Jesus in that part of the world per million. So this is a very small amount. It fits in the palm of my hand versus all the rice that's in this jar. Very few people have a personal relationship with Jesus there. Several of them have never even heard about Jesus. So not only is this an amazing part of the world, but they have a really specific need for Jesus because several of them have never heard about him before. And we're going to talk real quick tonight about one Southeast Asia country in particular, and that is the country of Cambodia. And you'll see it up here on the screen. So it's one of the few kind of almost landlocked countries, but it's between Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. Cambodia is one of the Southeast Asian countries. They produce rice. The majority of land in Cambodia is dedicated to planting and growing rice. So it is a big part of their culture there. Now, let's say there's not 1 million pieces of rice. Let's say there's only 1,000 pieces of rice in this jar. I'm going to pull out 4 pieces of rice. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 pieces of rice. These 4 pieces of rice represent the number of Christians in Cambodia per 1,000. So basically, for every 1,000 people in Cambodia, there's about 4 people who know Christ as their Lord and Savior. It's a very small amount. The majority of people there worship different religions, worship different gods, but only a very small amount of people have ever heard about Jesus or even have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. It's a very small amount of people. And that is why it is so important for missionaries to go there. And a lot of these people actually don't have a Bible. They don't have access to God's Word like we do here. We have access to Bibles all over the place. If you need a Bible, I've got one in my office for you. We've got several Bibles here. But over there are not a lot of Bibles, especially in countries like Cambodia, where being a Christian is not really the most popular thing to be. And it's actually, especially for Cambodia, it's actually really hard for missionaries to be able to go over there in the first place, because the government there is not the most friendly towards Christians. For some reason, they don't trust Christians. They don't want Christians in their country. And so it's very hard for missionaries to get over there. And even once they've gotten over there, there's such a small population of Christians there, it's really hard for them to be able to get out and tell people about Jesus. But you know what? It's very similar to this process with rice. You know, for me, you guys might disagree, but I think planting rice and growing it sounds like a very complicated process. It seems like a very long, complicated, hard process. And the truth is that for missionaries around the world, and especially in places like Cambodia, it's really hard for them to get in and to be able to tell people about Jesus. It's a long, complicated process. But you know what? They're still willing to go in and to serve and to do their best to help the people of Cambodia and to meet their needs. You know, one of the great things we see about Jesus in the scriptures is that several times when Jesus is going to talk to people, one of the things he does is he meets their immediate needs, the things that they need right now, usually through some type of miracle. You guys think, what are some of your favorite miracles that Jesus ever did? What do you guys think? There's a lot of cool ones where he helps a blind man to see, where he makes a paralyzed man walk, where he's walking on the water. One of my favorites is when he takes 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish in a crowd of 5,000 people, and he tells his disciples, use that to feed them. And he starts breaking it apart, and they keep passing the food down and passing it and passing it. And all of a sudden, those 5 loaves of bread and those 2 fish keep coming and coming until everybody has enough food. And the Bible even says that after they had finished, when everybody was full, they went around and collected 12 baskets full of bread and fish that were left over. Jesus provided the needs for the people. And then he told them about why he had come, how much he loved them, how much he cared for them. And that's what missionaries in Cambodia are trying to do. They're trying to do the same thing that Jesus did by going in, help meet the needs of the people, help the people there, and tell them about Jesus and their need for a personal relationship with him. So here's my challenge to you guys this week. As we're still mostly locked down at home and everything, I want you guys to think about what are some needs maybe around your house that you could meet for maybe your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, and then be willing to just do it. And then be thinking about, too, who can you invite to church? Who can you tell about Jesus? That chore at home, telling someone about Jesus, it might be a long and difficult process, but I promise it will be worth it. All right? And remember, we've got our summer adventures coming up. Hopefully on June the 3rd, we'll be starting with that. Be thinking about a friend that maybe you can invite to that. It's going to be a great time, and you're going to find out on Sunday what our first adventure is going to be on June 3rd. So make sure you check that out. All right, now before we go, we have a brand new verse for the month. It's found in Philippians chapter 2, and it's verse 2, and it says this: fulfill my joy by thinking the same way, having the same love, sharing the same feelings, focusing on one goal. This is Paul talking to the church in Philippi, telling them that, guys, we need to keep our focus on the one thing that matters, the one goal that matters, and that is telling people about Jesus. No matter how hard it gets, let's keep our focus on telling people about Jesus. All right? Now, let's say this verse together. Everybody on 3. 1, 2, 3. Fulfill my joy by thinking the same way, having the same love, sharing the same feelings, focusing on one goal. Philippians 2:2. All right, we'll keep working on that verse. We'll go back to some of our other verses for the last couple months. We'll get back to those probably next week. Make sure you keep those fresh in your mind, because I did promise when you guys come back, if you can say all these verses, we're going to have a plethora of treats for you, I promise. All right, I hope you guys have a great week. If you guys need anything, please let Pastor Jeff know. We're always here for you guys. We love you guys. We miss you. We can't wait for you guys to be back here. And I hope you guys have just a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time.